Hello, and welcome back to the Outdoor Minimalist Podcast. I'm your host, Meg Carney, an outdoor and environmental writer and author of the book Outdoor Minimalist: Waste Less Hiking, Camping, and Backpacking. The Outdoor Minimalist Podcast has a goal to give listeners actionable ways to waste less hiking, camping, backpacking, and more during every step of their process. Your impact outdoors starts long before you hit the trail and goes beyond leave no trace ethics. You'll learn how to identify sustainable outdoor brands, how to ask hard questions regarding sustainability, and begin to shift and evolve your mindset to integrate minimalism into all of your outdoor pursuits. In episode 69 of the Outdoor Minimalist Podcast, I am talking about greenwashing. So this episode idea actually came from a listener's question. And in case you didn't know, you can message me any questions that you have about the show, about outdoor minimalism, about products, greenwashing, whatever, or just general episode ideas. And you can do that directly on our website, which is theoutdoorminimalist.com, or you can DM me on Instagram or Facebook. I might respond faster via email, but you can DM me if that works easier for you. So we've talked about greenwashing a fair bit on the show, and some of the episodes that go in more depth about greenwashing include episode 11, titled Greenwashing in the Outdoor Industry, where we talk with Steven Sashen from Xero Shoes about how greenwashing is basically commonly used in marketing and how to spot it. And we kind of specifically talk about brands in the outdoor industry, but this extends to all products, everything that's made, basically. And then in episode 11, titled Crafting Truthful and Transparent Sustainable Product Marketing, I talk with Amanda Winther, and she breaks down how companies can avoid greenwashing by representing their products more transparently. And even though that topic is not super niche to greenwashing, it does come up a lot, and she has a really good definition of it in that episode. I know that we mentioned greenwashing a fair bit in other episodes as well, but those were the two that have a larger focus on this. So despite the fact that I've covered greenwashing a fair bit and so have guests on the show, I still think that greenwashing can be a relatively confusing topic and hard for many consumers to spot easily. And a few weeks ago, I got a message from listener Joe Watkins where he asked me for a take on a company's mission statement. And for some reason, when he was reading the mission statement from this company, it made him rethink buying a product from them, which I thought was really interesting. And I love that. So kind of applying the 7 R's of outdoor minimalism, which if you don't know what those are, I talk about them in some of the earlier episodes. And so when I got the message, I decided to check out the company's website and do a bit of a deep dive into their marketing strategy and their products. And I won't name the company specifically, but while I was reading this information, long story short, I read the mission statement and it gave me a little bit of an ick or an icky feeling. And there were a few reasons why, but without going into too much detail about them and their mission statement specifically, I thought it would be a good idea to just talk about what greenwashing actually is on the show and how we as consumers can spot it more easily. All right, so if you have a copy of the Outdoor Minimalist book and this topic interests you, then I suggest reading the Get to Know Your Gear chapter. In that chapter, I cover not only how to recognize a sustainable product or outdoor brand, but I also go over some key things to look for if you're trying to evaluate greenwashing within that product or brand. So first, let's talk about what is greenwashing. And I'm going to quote the book here. So quoting the Outdoor Minimalist book, greenwashing is essentially a marketing technique used to convince consumers that a product is more eco-friendly than it actually is. Greenwashing is often carried out in the form of product messaging, marketing campaigns, and packaging appearances. Take compostable or biodegradable plastic, for example. Plastic can break down, but it's not technically a biodegradable material. The plastic pieces simply become smaller and smaller microplastics over time. Some of these materials can, in a sense, be composted, but only in industrial facilities that can provide specific environmental conditions. You cannot compost plastic materials in your at-home compost. That's why getting to know the materials and afterlife of a product is so important. Not all terms, like biodegradable or compostable, are regulated in a way that makes it easy for consumers to understand the afterlife impact. Another example that I can think of off the top of my head is one that comes from a Starbucks campaign, or kind of like a cup switch. This happened a few years back, maybe 2017-ish, around there. I'd have to look up the exact date. But this is the year that they dropped plastic straws. So they stopped using them across the board in all of their stores. And in theory, this should be a good thing, right? But the issue was that the strawless lids that they produced to replace their straws actually used more plastic than the straws did. And even though those lids are labeled as recyclable, they are equally as difficult to recycle as straws, especially in the current recycling system, because around the same time is when China dropped recycling for us. And so recycling everything became more difficult when plastic already was hard enough to recycle to begin with. Now, I know that this is kind of an old example, but I still think it's a really good one because it shows how sneaky greenwashing really can be. And as a consumer, it is easy to look at a big name like Starbucks and think, wow, they ditched straws. That's such a great move. And maybe it even makes you want to go there more often because it gives that image of really caring about the environment. Where underneath them ditching straws, many environmental advocates saw this simply as a marketing ploy instead of a move to actually have more sustainable cups. Those are just a couple examples. There's a lot of different examples of greenwashing. And if you just do a quick Google search of like examples of greenwashing, you'll find a lot of big companies come up, and there's so many examples. But those two, I think, are really easy to reference. So just to kind of recap, like phrases like biodegradable or compostable, or if you're looking at food, words like natural, ones that are not regulated by an overarching body. Those can easily be slapped onto any label and be seen as greenwashing. Another one is the Starbucks one, which they take something away, but then put something in its place that is equally as bad, if not worse. Going back to the Outdoor Minimalist book, if you go to page 23, if you have the book, then you can also find a little box that outlines a few ways to identify greenwashing. And when I was writing these, I was essentially adopting the 7 sins of greenwashing that were published in a TerraChoice study in 2010. So I'm just going to kind of overview those a little bit. So on page 23, how to recognize greenwashing in an outdoor company. The first one is that there is no proof of their claims. So say they claim that their packaging is made from eco-friendly materials, or from the example I used earlier, from compostable or biodegradable materials. But then they don't explain what that package is actually made from. Is it made from plastic because it looks like plastic? Is it made from a bioplastic that is technically compostable in an industrial facility, but not an at-home compost? So that is kind of what it means, is there's no proof of those claims. And the second one is that environmental messaging is extremely vague. So a lot of times this will come from a mission statement or a slogan of some kind. In that, it can be something like all natural flavoring. That's pretty vague. Or sustainable. If they use the word sustainable really, really frequently, that's really vague, and it's just kind of like a hot button or trigger word that is supposed to kind of draw a consumer in. So look for specifics about where a product is produced, what the materials actually are, what certifications that they have, are they third-party tested? All of those types of things should be as specific and as transparent as possible. The third one is product messaging is focused solely on one environmental issue. One example of this that I can think of right now is if maybe they have pretty vague messaging, but then they really focus throughout all of their messaging on the fact that they plant a tree with each purchase. So in theory, yeah, that's great. We love trees. We love planting trees, and a lot of organizations do a lot of good work doing that. But if that is their sole environmental claim or their environmental issue that they focus on, but they don't really talk about other things, I see that as problematic because they're essentially using it as a way to blanket that their actual product production isn't really that sustainable. The fourth one is that they are not using legitimate third-party certifications to support their initiatives. So certifications like 1% for the planet, B Corp certified, climate neutral certified, all of those that utilize third-party testing are a good gauge, essentially, that they are going through all of the right channels to actually produce a quality and sustainable product. And so a couple other examples would be like fair trade certified, and oh gosh, I can't think of them right now. Even the organic certification would be one if you're looking at food. The fifth one is that their marketing boasts a lesser of two evils type of message. When Joe messaged me about that company's mission statement, this was the one red flag that I saw in their statement, basically saying that they're making their product more durable to essentially have a longer lifespan, which is great. But then they added in that it makes it better than quote unquote sustainable products that use sustainable materials or natural materials that would not last as long or be as durable. So they're essentially saying that durability and longevity, no matter the type of material it's made from, is still better than a natural material that won't last quite as long. So a lesser of two evils type of message. The, I think, sixth one is a lack of transparency in sourcing, production, and transportation, as well as general company environmental standards. So if you go to a website and you're trying to check out a product and you find their sustainability page, if they kind of just say really vague things like mentioning that it's eco-friendly materials, but they're not saying where those materials are sourced from or even exactly what the materials are, where the materials are produced, how they're transported, etc., that's not very transparent. Like, we want the whole process. We want this whole thing laid out in a sustainability transparency report so we actually know where these products are coming from and what their impact is. And the last one, number 7, is non-responsiveness to consumer inquiries regarding environmental practices. So this would be if you emailed them and asked, hey, I noticed on your sustainability page that you mentioned that you use eco-friendly materials. Can you tell me exactly what those materials are? And they write back and give you a vague response, or they don't write back at all. That's a red flag. So that's kind of a lot of information, but I also then want to go over how to actually recognize a sustainable product or brand, because that was kind of just overviewing how to recognize greenwashing specifically. And I think both are equally as important. And you'll notice a lot of overlap in my explanations here. So if you do have the book, you can flip to page 22, and there's a box on there that goes over the signs of a sustainable outdoor product. And the first one that I mentioned is that you should read the company's mission statement and see if it aligns with ethical and environmental friendly viewpoints. And when you're reading the mission statement, you can look for any vagueness in their claims, lesser of two evils, all those types of things in what I just overviewed about greenwashing, which a lot of this can be done on their website. The next one is read the company's about page. See if they started the company to solve a problem beyond just making products and pushing more things into the world to make money. And if that was the case, is that mission to provide a more sustainable option for consumers? What exactly is their mission and why did they start this company? Then see if they have a blog or a resources page on their website, and see if they're sharing detailed information about how their product is made, where their materials are coming from, how to repair the item, how to return items, etc. See if they have extra information about not only how to use their product, but how to make it last longer, and to add to their transparency report that I hope that they have. The next one is essentially what I kind of just said, is that they offer reports and annual reviews outlining targets and goals for their sustainable sourcing, energy use, and environmental impact. And I did an episode with the Icebreaker brand based out of New Zealand, where they talk about how they put together their sustainability transparency report. So if you don't know what that is, I recommend going back to that episode and checking that out. Back to signs of sustainable outdoor products. Also look for direct and transparent consumer messaging, and this includes general responsiveness to consumer questions regarding sustainability. So even though the number one green flags should be that they share all of this information outright and it's easy for you to access, you shouldn't have to dig and dig and dig to find it. But if you can't find all the things you're looking for, do they respond to you? Do they respond to an email? Next is look for external third-party certifications that hold them to a regulated higher standard of environmental stewardship. So I mentioned this in the how to recognize greenwashing as well. Do they use third-party certifications at all? In some smaller companies, they might not be able to afford or qualify for third-party certifications yet. But in those cases, what I've found is those companies are still very transparent about their sustainability, and they'll still have a sustainability page that overviews all of that information. So even without the third-party certifications, the company can be sustainable. I just think those certifications make it even easier for consumers to recognize good companies faster. Next is if they have a sustainability consultant or advisor to audit the environmental and workplace sustainability. So this kind of goes along with the reports and annual reviews, the third-party certifications, and sustainability and workplace audits, I think, are just a good way to get someone from outside of the company to take a look and see if there's any areas where they can improve. The next one, especially for outdoor gear, is if they have a repair policy or lifetime guarantee for all of their gear and equipment. And if they do some type of replacement policy, I would double check to make sure that they are not just trashing your old product and giving you a new one. Because in my opinion, that's not very sustainable. And the last one that I have in that box is when the media or consumers call them out regarding production practices, they make a noticeable effort to change and improve beyond a public apology. So this could be if they're called out in the news or on social media, on a platform that gets a lot of traction. Do they not only apologize for being like, oh, I'm sorry that I misled you in that way, but do they also fix it? Do they fix the problem? Those are kind of like the quick and easy ways that I put together for the writing of the Outdoor Minimalist book, since I want people to be able to use this as a reference guide. So you can even have the book out and around while you are shopping. Just so you can kind of like reference and be like, oh, okay, that's why that gave me kind of a weird or icky feeling. And at the end of that chapter, the Get to Know Your Gear chapter in the book, I also include some email scripts. And I went back and forth for a while when I was writing this chapter to decide whether or not to include the scripts. But I think that they can be helpful if you do have a question and you aren't exactly sure where to start. And my approach when I have questions regarding sustainability from a company is just go out on a limb and ask. Most of the time, I receive a response that is honest and forthcoming, and other times I don't receive a response at all. And in that case, as I've mentioned, just move on to a different product or brand. Because the way I see it, if they aren't willing to take the time to address these questions and concerns with customers that either are already buying from them or are interested in buying from them, then they likely aren't prioritizing sustainability at all. That was a lot of information, and with all of that being said, I hope that this somewhat short episode is still helpful in directing you to better brands, products, and sustainable decisions as you are shopping. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, please, please, please do not hesitate to reach out if you ever have a question about greenwashing or just a question in general. It doesn't have to be about greenwashing, any question, as well as any general episode ideas. If there is a company you think I should interview, if there is like a cool new product coming out that you'd like me to review, just shoot me a DM or go to theoutdoorminimalist.com to submit your ideas there. Thanks for listening, and if you like what you hear, let me know. Leave a review and be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can find us on Instagram at outdoor.minimalist.book or subscribe to our weekly newsletter at theoutdoorminimalist.com for even more updates, educational resources, and to help build an outdoor community with the shared goal to create a better outdoor space as we recreate.